Welcome to News Laundry Interviews. We have today in our studio Sunetra Choudhury. She's a well-known face on television. Senior anchor. Are you senior anchor yet? How does it work? How does a senior anchor?
I don't know. It doesn't make a difference, but yes,
Senior anchor at NDTV, and you've been covering the CBI beat for a long time.
Yeah, but CBI has been like one of those things which I inevitably do because I've been doing it since like 2004, but I also cover other things like politics.
Yes, we see that. And she has just come out with her book, Behind Bars, published by Roli. So this is a book about, I'll just tell our viewers what it's about, and then we can come to Sunetra. And I have a few psychoanalysis type questions about this book.
Okay.
Not psychoanalyzing you, although we'll do that as well.
Okay.
It's basically, each chapter is the story of some high profile cases, some not so high profile, like Khushi, which I wasn't aware of that case till I read it here, of people who've been in prison, everyone from A. Raja to Amar Singh to Peter Mukerjea, who you interacted with on mail. What I got was you didn't actually meet him face to face.
No.
It was all on mail.
Yeah.
And to basically, it's a look at life in prison, although the blurb here by Ram Jethmalani says it's, on criminal justice. I'm not sure whether the justice part, because the court part is not really looked at, but just what it's like to be in jail and how it changes people. Amar Singh's being very fascinating and some being ghastly. So we'll come to that. So there is A. Raja, Amar Singh, Pappy Yadav, Peter Mukerjea, and
Somnath Bharti.
Somnath Bharti, yes, I read the Somnath Bharti. Although he had pretty decent time in jail, he shouldn't complain.
Well, it was very
much.
short.
It was very short. No, but there are others who had a short time, like, Khushi's was very short, and that was like her. And in the Khushi chapter, there's a reference to one more.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Transgender person who was. So, okay, so first of all,
you liked the book?
I liked the book actually. I did because it gives you. It's very disturbing because this exists. But what I find disturbing is that it's out there. There's a book which tells you what the police does to you inside jail. And it's spoken about as if that's standard. But yet, nothing happens to cops. Does that disturb you as a journalist? Does it make you question, why do I do what I do, since nothing matters?
Totally. The whole book actually came out as I say in the introduction, it was actually just like a story, and it started out being like a orange is the new black kind of thing. This woman, this model, this who obviously turns a lot of heads because she's blonde and she's 6 feet. She goes to jail and she becomes this person who wears designer clothes in jail. And the jail story, Abhinandan, is something that I think journalists, and this I've seen since I've been in Express, so that's like 17, 18 years of reporting. Every time somebody goes to jail, high profile, people want to know, okay, what's he eating? What's he doing? So that part of the reporting I've done, lots. So you would think that, we know what happens there. And I've been to cover jails, been inside Tihar and other jails a few times because of these reporting assignments. So when she came out and she called me and all of that, and, it was, I thought that she wants to give some information. And, her lawyers had sent me some tape recordings of her having a fight with another woman in jail. So I thought I was going to get a news story. So, but what happens with reporters and a lot of people is that people connect, and that happens on any story. You go and you're reporting on something else, and then you connect as women. So she met me and she was like, oh, it's so nice to meet a normal person. I've just come from the spa, she told me. So I was like, really? Yeah. So she goes, and then she started describing Tihar jail as an ashram. And then she started telling me things that she did there. So we went completely away from some CBI story, which she wanted me to pursue, to me just asking her as a curious person, right? That's why we become storytellers, we become journalists, because we want to know what's happening inside. And so it kind of went from that to something that I had no idea about. But so the
idea... Is that how this idea of the book was born?
Yeah.
That what it's like in jail.
Yeah,
and then
so first I did a TV interview with her because she told me all of this, and I said, well, we must do an interview. So we did an interview. But I realized when she came on TV, even though it was fascinating, people found it very fascinating, and some people also criticized me because they said that she's a criminal and why have you put her on TV? The TV interview was about life inside jail. But I realized as soon as she came on TV, she held back. She didn't talk about a lot of things. So there was no question of, and on TV how do you describe the strangeness of somebody wearing Louis Vuitton in Tihar?
But why did she want to wear Louis Vuitton in Tihar?
Because she pointed out the jail manual which allows people to, if you're under trial, you can maintain yourself however you want. Because you're not convicted yet. But you see, it's only the privileged, it's only those who have the means who can throw these rules at people.
Right, and also even you can step outside the rules if you're privileged. For example, for our viewers, there's one chapter about Subrat Rai. If you read how Subrat Rai lives in Tihar, you'll wonder at your...
Actually, there's not a chapter about him. There are just stories about him from other people. Right. He refused to be part of the book.
This is the introduction.
Yeah.
There's no chapter on him, but excerpts of how he lives in jail. Or, for that matter, the way you see where someone like Pappy Yadav, how he got on in jail, as opposed to the boy who was tortured.
And the boy who was tortured, yeah.
Yeah, Wahid. Wahid and his brothers and his brother-in-law, the whole family. This was the Bombay blasts. Finally, they were acquitted.
He was acquitted.
Yeah. But 10 people were convicted.
Yeah.
Now, does someone like him, who is a teacher in a small school, after having all sorts of oil stuffed up your ass as part of torture, I mean, it's disgusting, and I'm not going to hold back because I don't think we need to prettify it, the kind of things that are done to these guys in jail. What is his redressal? How does he get back at the guys who did it? Is there any redressal for someone like him?
Well, he's obsessed with it now. He is obsessed, so he's formed something called the Innocence Network, and which is just going around town. They spend their own money to come here. They came to Delhi, for which I interviewed all of them again. He gets all of those people who were wrongly jailed, who also include the Makkah Masjid blast people. They go around, and all they want is some kind of apology, some kind of compensation from the state.
They don't want those guys jailed who did this to them, in those cops. They don't want those cops to be imprisoned.
Well, part of it, I think that's a whole list of things that they want. He also strongly believes. And the thing is, for a reporter, you get everybody's version. It's not for me to judge. But he believes that everybody who's on death row right now, he got acquitted. And he says that the only reason he got acquitted is that despite all that torture, he refused to sign the confession statement.
And the rest of them signed.
The rest of them did. And so they're on death row right now. So his main mission in life is to raise enough doubts for them to be taken off.
I'll just ask you that question that I asked you in the beginning. When you, I'll read this book, it'll become a hazy memory in a week or so. But for someone who covers the police beat every day, and you come across stories like this every day, I'm asking you again, can you still maintain a semblance of a faith that there is justice in this country? Because if you read this book, anyone who thinks there is justice and the justice takes its course and all, I'm very cynical that way. But like I said, I read the book, I'll read another. But you'll do these stories for as long as you're a reporter. Why do you think there's hope?
Because we sometimes come across those stories of hope. Because despite 13 years, Wahid came out. The others maybe didn't. Because
he came out, but he was bashed up in jail. He had stuff inserted into him. He had, he was stripped and tortured, and there were threats to his family that we'll do this to your dad, the others will do this to your sister, we'll do this to your mother.
Let's not forget Khushi, who was raped.
We'll come to that as well. In fact, I want to come to that because there is nothing against the cops. There's no FIR.
And lie detector test for a rape victim. Can you imagine?
Yeah, we'll come to that. But so that one story of justice out of a gazillion is enough to keep your faith?
I think that we have the luxury of having
Cynicism.
the faith or anything.
Okay.
I think that a lot of us who stick around, Abhinandan, in doing this job, and I know I can't do anything else. I'm a compulsive storyteller. That we will just continue to, what it has done, especially this, because it allowed me to say it in much more detail, is definitely how it's changed me is that I am, and remember, I cover these agencies. A lot of these people are people who I think are decent.
I was
people.
about to come to that.
A lot of these officers I respect. That is their strategy. But what can we do is just to tell their stories. And hopefully what it has done, how it's changed me is, I really promise myself that I will for sure, question the authorities a lot more.
So while you say that what this teaches you is you must question the authorities, which I must say is not the standard in journalism these days. If you question the army, how can you question the army? If you question the courts, how can you question the courts? If you question the government, how can you question the government? When you read something like this, you realize everything must be questioned. But speaking of interacting with people who...
Because I want to tell you one thing, which Wahid asked me while we were meeting. He said, tell me, which terrorist in the world who's planted a bomb comes every day for questioning?
Yeah, you've written that in your book.
You're right.
Every day he landed up when they called him.
Every day. All of them.
Until they kept him and then they...
For weeks, for days, they kept calling them. So I posed this question because my publishers also felt, whereas unlike a he said, she said account of a news report, the book gives you, a book format gives you the luxury of telling somebody's story. Now people can say you're biased. No, I'm telling that person's story. He's been acquitted, right? He's been acquitted. I'm telling his story. And yet I went back and I spoke to Mr. A.N. Roy. And I asked him this. Well, what do you have to say? I said, first specifics, because that's what Wahid also asked me. How can I tell you names, dates, everything in such way? How can my imagination be so fertile that I'm telling you this time, this date, this car, this person, he did this to me. How can I do it? So he said, so A.N. Roy responded to that by saying that they're trained to do this. They know that their charges will be much more, much more credible if they give such details. When I said the other thing, he said, no, everybody wasn't called for questioning every day. But the fact that some were.
Right.
Yes.
But I like you said, a lot of these, because of the beat that you cover, you have to deal with a lot of these officers on a daily basis. Not daily, but frequently, and you respect a lot of them. You find them credible professionally. Do you find at all, this is a slightly long question, so just bear with me. The point I'm trying to make is that, we see what you do, you get desensitized, right? There is an emotional cost to pay for your professional work as well. For example, doctors, I have doctors in my family, they have, they don't react to illnesses the way the rest do. Oh, so-and-so is unwell. Even if it's in the family, they say, haan, theek hai, it's not a big deal. If you see beatings every day, you get desensitized, and I think it warps your mind in some sense. I find it hard to believe, and I'm not being judgmental here, I think it's hard to be a cop. But a military man can justify his actions saying that, in case the excesses, that I'm doing it for the country. Psychologically, we all want to justify our worst actions so that we don't think of ourselves as horrible people. At the end of the day, you have to live with yourself. A military man can say, I'm doing it for the country. But like the Khushi, the Jaipur, cops who rape this woman for fun, a transgender, she identifies herself as a woman, or the people who do what they did to Wahid. Do you see any remorse? Do you find in your interaction that they're emotionally a bit warped? And I'm not just saying this as an accusation. I guess it's very sad. Do you think if many of these cops are put through a psychoanalysis test, they would be unhinged? Because how can you see that and be a part of shit like that every day and go home and say, okay, I'm a good person?
I definitely think they're a different breed. And I definitely think that they have dehumanized their victims.
But what I'm saying, what does that do to themselves? Do you find that they can justify anything?
Well,
do you,
a lot of the perpetrators, though, the perpetrators aren't people that I know personally, especially in these particular cases where I know such details. So I can't say that, Abhinandan, I know those people who have done such things. No, I don't. For instance, all of the people named by Wahid, I don't know those people. I spoke to Enroy, but I don't know those people, so I don't know what they're like. But yes, I mean...
No, but a cop is a cop in the sense that I'm not saying all cops are like that, but what I'm saying is that they have been part of that kind of an arrangement at some point in their lives, if not frequently.
Yeah.
Do you see that impacting them anyway in your interactions? Like, to give you an example, every time I've interacted with a bureaucrat, I think a bureaucrat is trained to have GK, have public policy, and they're also trained to be really arrogant people. When you walk into a bureaucrat's office, he won't tell you to sit. He won't even look up at you for 5 minutes. It's standard.
I know what you mean.
It is standard practice no matter which bureaucrat you meet. So it's almost as if they're trained to make the person there feel like, dude, I'm so powerful, you're shit. So it becomes a part of their personality. Do you see any similarity in a cop's personality? Because this is how jails work. And it may be Tihar, it may be Jaipur, but I don't think Ambala is different. I'm sure they're all the same.
Yeah.
In the country.
Yeah.
Arthur Road is, how different can it be from a Tihar or from...
Well, some are worse.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Nagpur.
So do you sense that at all?
Actually, I'm trying to think of all the interactions with the police officers. In fact, one of the police officers, he gave me great insight. He's a senior IPS officer. He gave me great insight into how they think and all. I think some are more sensitive than others. Some, they've obviously been trained to
switch off a part of their brain.
Yeah. And the problem is that they treat crime reporters, which is what we are seeing. We saw it in Rafiq's case. So I was towards the end of writing this book when Rafiq's case happened, and it was exactly the same as Wahid's. Exactly the same as Wahid's. So there is a realization that this story is getting repeated over and over and over again. And yet, the head of the special cell, Delhi special cell, which perpetrated so many of these, right? So many of these. And we saw so many people getting acquitted. So Rafiq's story, Wahid's story, it's going on. He's a perfectly social person. Like he'll come, he'll interact, he'll be... But when they think that they're dealing with someone, they need to pin the blame. If you ask Wahid, if you ask everyone, they know exactly why this happened to them.
Well.
The cops needed somebody to pin the blame on. So they picked on people who were marked as bad characters, so-called semi-activists. We know that, right? This is how cops work. And so they realized that this happened to them because the police needed easy victims, and that's why it was put.
What about the emotional cost of being a journalist who covers this? Do you find yourself having, absorbed
nightmares?
so much? Yeah, I read it, but I think talking to someone who has faced that and describing, let's say someone like Khushi, for example, do you find that it takes its toll on you?
I really think that's why I write, I think. That's the only reason I write, because once I've written down, I feel like I've done something constructive out of it.
Okay.
That's the only reason I write. I think because a lot of people who are in television, they've stopped, they don't have that outlet. Because I was trained to write. I was with the Express. So I started out as being a writer. The reason I became a journalist is because, not for changing the world. I became a journalist because imagine getting paid for going someplace and getting paid for telling that story. So my whole thing was telling that story. So for me, it's cathartic. As you were saying this, I remember that it was only my first or second rape case which I covered as a reporter in Express, which traumatized me. And I think that is the one which I've pushed back into my head, which, it was a woman who was raped in a home, and she kept crying when I went to meet her, and she was a fairly articulate middle-class woman, and I remember that they were a little scared that the media had knew where they stayed, and I remember going to meet her at home, and I think because I've pushed it so back, into the recesses of my memory, I think she called me one day because I'd left my number saying that she needed, and she was crying on the phone. And that gave me such nightmares. I just kept having nightmares that I have, in a way, even though it was a newspaper, there were no photographs, there was no camera, it was nothing, there was no identification or anything like that. But the fact that I had just done a story and left her and not been part of some kind of a, therapeutic process, because we don't have that for rape victims, had haunted me for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things of journalists. You do a story and then you move on, and I guess at the back of your head it is, am I supposed to see this to the end? I think that's a dilemma all journalists face.
But I think that what a lot of us tell ourselves to get over it is that by telling their story, that we are part of a process. I know that Khushi is very happy that she's part of this. I know that they wanted to be identified. I know that she thinks that it highlights a case which everybody else has forgotten.
Okay. Also for our viewers who may not read the book, there seems to be, at least what I got was, Kobad Gandhi is a very interesting character. I think there's a certain normalness and calmness to his story. He's 70 and he was, for those of you who may remember, he was for Maoist Naxal links. He was arrested and he's out now.
No, he's not out. He's still in jail. I went and met him in jail.
Hasn't he served his term?
That is the tragedy of it.
He served his term?
No. He's been acquitted by both the courts.
Yes.
But as usual, how UAPA works in this country, as soon as he was arrested by Delhi, they made various cases. Delhi was the strongest case.
So he's been
now
acquitted.
He faces by Delhi, he's been acquitted. Then after a year, he's been acquitted by Patiala. But he faces 14 other cases. And he's 70 years old. And despite being from Doon School, despite having the Doon School alumni writing about him, he doesn't have money. He doesn't have fancy lawyers like Anka does. So he's sitting there waiting for the justice system to work.
So he's been acquitted, but he's not out of jail. He's been acquitted in 2 of those cases. The rest are still okay.
Yeah, and some of those cases are of him when he was in Tihar.
Okay. But the rest, like someone like Amar Singh or Peter Mukerjea, who seems surprisingly calm, but I guess maybe because on email,
it was an email, but yeah, letters.
I guess you can't see what toll it's taking on him. But like Amar Singh and the likes have been, basically it's shaken them because, he feels Amitabh Bachchan left him when he was in jail. All his people who he considered friends distanced themselves. So that is his angst. His angst is not necessarily what happened to him in jail. Like his biggest thing is that he was the balti, there was one mug. So the same mug I drank from, the same mug I washed my potty with, which, okay, it's not the best case scenario, but dude, even I've done that. I've gone for a trek but
for him it's like traumatic. Yeah. So for everyone it's a relative degree.
But what I'm saying is, someone of that socio-economic bracket finds it so difficult to overcome that trauma, whereas if you're in the lower socio-economic bracket, you even overcome ghastly rapes and foreign bodies being inserted into you. And I mean, it just shows us, at least showed me, the self-indulgence of our class, that something like, oh meri dosti toot gayi, bhai trauma ho gaya, लेकिन बाकी जो गरीब लोग हैं उनकी तो मतलब माँ बहन एक कर देते हैं उनका, they still learn to live with it. Did you find it's a reflection of the society we live in as well, that our expectations from ourselves and our lives are so different from 80% of India's expectations of themselves and their lives?
I know what you're saying, but I just approached it differently. I put myself, when you first of all, these people, I really, it was a huge leap of faith for them to tell these stories. So I guess because I saw them at their vulnerable best, I'm very empathetic to their situation. I'm as empathetic to Amar Singh as I am. I mean, I cry a lot more for the others. And I guess my language also changes, When when you're editing, you reread. I noticed that my language was best when I told the story of Rahmana, because I obviously felt for her the most.
Sure.
And
I think it's a gender identity also, as someone who's a woman in that sense.
And to be in jail for years for just being married to the wrong man is... So anyway, obviously that empathy worked itself much more in places where they were treated, worst of all. You're right that somebody not getting the right mug but the thing is, because I'm empathetic to their situation, because I empathize with them, I understood how for them it was as bad. I'm saying this. I'm just saying that it's relative.
Sure, I'm not saying
in their, for example, how can you, even though Raja himself says that he says, I really actually, we all, and I was the one standing outside CBI, repeating what CBI said about Raja, which is that kingpin and all of that, and I was doing all that. But when I met him and he tells me the impact that jail had on his daughter, the kind of things that people wrote about him and Kani, and the impact it had on a young Mater Dei student, his daughter, for me, so the VIP aspect didn't play out in that way. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
For me, so obviously I kind of got into the story that much that I felt all of that. I felt the pathos in all of this. So I didn't think, oh, look at him. I didn't go to Amar Singh and heard the story and say, well, why is this so much worse? No, I didn't have those degrees.
No, I'm not saying you'll say it to him, but I mean...
No, I didn't feel it as well. I know what you mean, and you're completely right and legitimate in feeling that. But I'm saying because I had to put myself in their shoes to tell their story, I saw it from a different perspective.
Okay. I mean, just quickly for our viewers who are not fond of reading, though if you are, I think this is it's a great read because it opens your eyes to what police, which is the one arm of the government that we interact with most. We don't interact with bureaucrats or civil servants as much as we interact with.
And the whole idea of the book, Abhinandan, was actually that if you and I went to jail, which could happen.
Sure.
If you and I went to jail, how would we survive?
Right. I think it's a good primer for that. But I was just wondering why Kani wasn't part of this. You asked her.
Yeah.
She refused to be a part of the book. I mean, can you guess why? I mean, what did you get? Is she so traumatized, or does she want to write a book of her own?
I think so. No.
But she's a prominent politician, and a politician's relative. They would not definitely subject her to something that could bite them in the ass, because things change. I mean, I know for a fact when Amrinder Singh and Badal, when they were alternating, when one would come to power, they pick up the other guy's men when the other would come. So the cops know that they have to report to either, depending on which 5 years.
Yeah. No, for sure. And she was the only person who had a mattress. We know that her mattress went to Anka, right? So little details.
So why do you think she didn't want to be part of this?
She didn't want to be part of this because, one, she's a very private person. So for this book, to be open to being part of a book like this, you have to open up. You have to trust. Kani, anyway, I think I'm one of those people she has done an interview with before she went to jail. The day before she was arrested, she did an interview on NDTV. That was with us. If anybody watches that, they'll know why she did. Because she's a monosyllabic person. She's a very unlike a regular politician. She doesn't speak much. She gives one-line answers. So I would say to her, and we had meetings, and she was, she's very nice. And I know I've also spoken to politicians, a BJP MP who's a great friend of hers, who went and visited her in jail. So what was in common with everybody else was that they remember who, everybody who visited.
Yeah, that's one thing that even Amar Singh, he knows who came and visited him when he was in jail and who didn't visit him and who came later.
And that's something that like regular people also have. That, that there's a little boy whose mother, obviously she couldn't afford it. She stopped coming. So he was left abandoned in jail, a life of no visitors and the kind of trauma that it causes, which is why the American Mallu, his chapter, which I think is the most detailed because of anonymity, he's able to describe every day what happens. What is the toilet like? What is this? What is this? And it's like, that's the one which blew my mind because that's what happened.
And him getting a chance to run away if you are,
I know.
Like, you know, it's interesting how if you have enough money, the cops will give you that one chance to run away. Yeah. And even every kathi roll you get, you have to pay for. Anyway, so it's an interesting book. Congratulations, Sunetra, on this. I have a few more questions,
of
though.
Course.
Do you also see any justice coming? For example, you know, the Khushi's case. The guys who raped her were not some IPS officers. They were, you know, just sub-inspector guys who were at a crossing, who stopped an auto, decided to get into a fight. And is there such a code of brotherhood in cops that you'll be protected no matter what? And the few guys, like the guy who shot the businessman in Connaught Place, who's in jail.
Yeah.
Is the only way a cop can get convicted is because someone wants to get you convicted or because you are a small pawn in the game who can be sacrificed. Otherwise, no matter where you are in the cop hierarchy, some justice can't get to you.
That's true. Look at what happened to Rathi, who was accused of molestation, right? No, I think that Khushi will get justice if the media decides to really, you know, I think that's where, you know, everyone criticizes the media and the media is supposed to be discredited and all of that, and everyone loves saying bad things about us on social media, but we are the only ones who, if we decide, can do amazing things. That's why once I wrote a piece about the audacity of TV. As a reporter on the crime beat or on the legal, somebody who's covered legal, things which were impossible have happened.
Like the Manu Sharma case being reopened and stuff. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know how to, because the media also polarized, like Peter Mukerjea pretty much blames Arnab for putting him in jail.
No, I'm just saying that if the media wants to make something a campaign, they can do things. They can, you know, make sure, get at people and make sure things happen, because things happen even when, I mean, really, you're
I'm
right.
not so sure anymore. I think there was a time, maybe a few years ago, I don't think.
You mean Manu Sharma's was the last one?
That was the last. Even after that, till, you know, the whole, I mean.
But it was a big one.
To a certain extent, you know, AAP is
even the Girotra case, even the molestation.
Yes.
That was also reinvestigation.
I mean, also
in the end, he didn't go to jail because he was old.
Fair enough, but okay, these are two cases, but one case where it wasn't a campaign, where there was a fallout because of the media scrutiny, but not necessarily positive fallout, is the Arushi Talwar case. You know, we don't know which way. I mean, I've seen footage of, you know, camera people before they were convicted going to their home, and when they want to get in, them being pushed around and stuff. I mean, it's okay. That's campaigning happening outside for MCD elections, so that audio will keep coming. So I mean, yeah, I'm not sure media can necessarily always play a positive role, especially with the media as polarized as it is right now. But that's a separate story. I have a few more questions about the media, but congratulations on this book. It's must require a lot of hard work, and of course you must have really thought far ahead because of the amount of people you've got in touch with and spoken to. All the interactions with Peter Mukerjea by written letter.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's talk about the media.
Am I qualified to talk about the media?
Anyone is. Dude, it's like cinema, yeah. Everyone's a director. अरे यार करने लगा घटिया फिल्म बनाई है इसने क्या तो we all say that, you know. So the thing is, news. See, we can't also क्या यार उसका pancreas खराब था उसने level पे operation कर दिया. We can't say that, or we can't say ये bridge इसलिए गिरा है क्योंकि इस पर बहुत stress था ये. But on media, cinema and books and television, everyone's an expert. So we have to understand that with good reason, because, you know. Do you think the best phase of the media is happening now, or is yet to come, or is over? Which way do you see news media going?
Can I just first say that I know everyone thinks they're an expert, but I don't think I am. I really think I'm just a reporter.
No, I'm not saying I'm not asking you as an expert. I'm asking you as a media professional.
Yeah, sure. I'm very optimistic, because how else would I survive doing this?
Okay.
I really, and I think that my first book, my friend, everybody else, all the reviews and all were very positive, but my friend didn't like it. So I said, why? He goes, because you're so gushy about it. You're so in love. I love my job and all of that. I know it's a little old-fashioned to say it, but
no, you can love your job. Okay, fine.
I don't think, it's not a question of loving your job. It's just like, I can't do anything else. I tell stories, and I think, Abhinandan, I don't think that people will ever tire of listening to stories or telling stories. So I focus on that. I know what you're saying, that media is very divided. But hey, there've always been problems everywhere. I mean, if you read, I was just reading Personal History of Catherine Graham, right? Which was set like from the 40s till George Bush Senior, all the presidents, and it's the publisher of Washington Post. And it's exactly the kind of criticism that we hear nowadays about who is fraternizing more, which media boss. It's always been there. Okay. I don't think that all of us reporters have to just focus on telling stories. We can beat ourselves up that we're not telling enough stories, and that's all. Okay.
No, leave that to News Laundry. We'll do the beating up. We thrive on that.
Yes.
But one last question. Mm-hmm. You had written a piece once about a particular politician having made an inappropriate advance or comment.
Yeah.
But you never did reveal his name.
Yeah.
Any chance you'll reveal it today?
No.
Why not?
Because it wasn't what was interesting was, that I'm revealing right now on News Laundry. What was interesting was that some Congress people called up and they were like, we know who it is. And some of them guessed rightly as well. And they're like, you should register a complaint and we'll take action. Look, I'm not here for people to settle scores and do all of that. There was a specific, first of all, I just started writing a column at that time. There was a specific objective of that piece. It was to write about what working women face, right? It was just that. And I talked about, it was a thing to tell people, the problem with sexual harassment is that many women, when they face it, they don't know that this is sexual harassment because it's so intangible at times. It's not in your face, and you start blaming yourself. And I wanted to show how even a so-called empowered woman who's privileged, who works for a media organization, can get flummoxed when they're faced with something like this. And then how I dealt with it. It was just that.
So is it because of that reason but in case, if you were in a perfect world, and justice worked the way justice works in a more evolved democracy, it's not perfect anywhere, but we are nowhere even in the medium range. We are in the bunghole creek of justice in the world. I mean, I believe so. I think a lot of other people may have other views depending on who they can afford to represent them. Would you take the name if we lived in a world where there would be a process of judicial processes would, bring it to some sort of sensible outcome rather than just politicians going at each other? Okay, let's use this as a lever to.
No.
It's got nothing to do with.
No, because it had happened to me 100 times before. It happens to women every day. It's because of social media that it happens to working women every single day. Someone saying something inappropriate. It's not politician who just says it. People say it. I've been in a newsroom, I used to work in a Hindi newsroom where this colleague of mine left a porn magazine on his desk. And no one said anything.
Maybe he was doing a story on porn.
No,
it's possible. I'm just saying.
Whatever. But I'm just saying.
Okay,
I'm just saying that this is a part of our lives. Why should I call out someone who is the 100th person who's done it?
Okay.
I'm saying it happens with anybody you meet. They say inappropriate things. I go to Parliament and someone will say something like, oh, what is the color in your cheeks? He'll talk about my makeup. People on social media will talk about the way I look. It's fine. We can't take ourselves. If I felt violated, Abhinandan, if I felt like I need to do this because it was an outrage, it was, I had been wronged, I would complain. But it didn't bother me that much. It happened. It was an everyday act of sexual harassment. Yes. But the thing is, what people forget, I want to tell all those people who keep telling me, why didn't you report it, why didn't you report it? Hello, part of being in women's empowerment is I choose. It's my choice. You can't tell me, you can't mansplain to me about why I should go and report to whom, whatever. It's my choice, it's my thing. And I chose, and then they'll say to me, why didn't NDTV do anything? Because I didn't go to NDTV, you know?
Okay.
It was just something to write about, it's just a column.
All right, just a column. And just a book, Behind Bars.
No, this is not just a book. It's a lot of work, yeah.
Okay, not just a book. Let's plug your book once again, Behind Bars. I liked it. I think if you're in a very good mood, just read this to bring you back down to earth and just hope
Not that depressing, is it?
Dude, you know, if you're poor, you're fucked in this country, let's face it. There is...
That's what the blurb says as well.
Does it?
It says...
If you steal 1,000 rupees, the Havaldar will beat the shit out of you and lock you up in a dungeon with no bulb or ventilation. If you steal 55,000 crore, then you get to stay in a 40-foot cell which has 4 split units, internets, fax, mobile phones, and a staff of 10 to clean your shoes and cook your food, in case it is not being delivered from Hyatt on that particular day. Yeah, so yeah, I just hope none of us ever have to see the inside of prison. But in case you think you will, you must read that book. Thanks for your time, Sunetra. Good luck with your future.
If you like that, click here to support us and down here to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and do check out the other stuff we do like News Laundry interviews, Why So Serious, animations, comics, panel discussions, podcasts which are really big, and much, much more.